The old woman in the corner hears a house in Pampanga that no one stays in for long. It's not broken, it's not haunted in the usual way, no sudden noises, no cold spots. Just an old wooden rocking chair in the corner of the living room. People say it belonged to Lola Tersing, who used to live there alone. She would sit there all day facing the window, never speaking. Unless someone asked her about the rain, she died in that chair during a storm with her eyes open and her mouth moving like she was still talking to someone outside. They buried her properly, held prayers, cleaned the house, and locked it up. Months later, her niece moved in. She kept the rocking chair where it was out of respect. The first night, the chair moved on its own just once, back and forth, slow and silent. She ignored it, told herself it was wind. But there was no wind. The next night, she heard breathing from the corner, light, steady breaths, like someone tired. The third night, she saw the shape and outline of a small woman sitting still, hands on her lap, head tilted slightly forward. She turned on all the lights, but the shape remained. She whispered, "Lola," and the chair stopped moving. Everything went quiet. But when she turned away, the chair creaked again, once, twice, then faster, like it was rocking harder. She moved out the next day. Now the neighbors say they see a figure through the window. Every time it rains, a small woman rocking gently, watching the street like she's waiting for someone to come home. Sometimes people walking by hear her whispering, "Don't forget your umbrella." And if you look through the window and meet her eyes, you dream of her sitting beside your bed, still rocking, still watching, still waiting. The grandfather upstairs in a town near Batangas. There's a house that's never rented for long, not because of noise or broken pipes, but because of the footsteps from the second floor, even when no one lives there. The neighbors say it used to belong to an old man everyone called Lolo Andres. He rarely left the house, just watched from the second floor window. Every morning, every afternoon, he passed away in that room alone. After that, the house was sold. A young couple moved in. They were told it needed a little cleaning, nothing else. The first night was quiet. The second, they heard slow, heavy footsteps above their bedroom. The third night, they heard coughing, soft, raspy, like someone who had trouble breathing. They checked upstairs. No one, only a rocking chair in the corner, and the faint smell of tobacco. They asked the neighbors, who told them Lolo Andres always smoked before bed and always rocked 3 times before sleeping. The couple tried to ignore it until one night, the man woke up. The next day, they found the chair facing the stairs. It hadn't been moved, at least not by them. The woman started hearing whispers through the wall, an old voice repeating names, none of them familiar. At night, the door upstairs opened and closed, slowly creaking. Once, then silence. They moved out after a week. Now the house remains empty, but lights flicker from the second floor window, even when no power is connected. Some nights, you can hear the sound of coughing drifting through the air. And if you pass by at dawn, you'll see a figure in the window looking down with tired eyes, not angry, not sad, just waiting, because Lolo Andres never left, and his house still remembers. The old woman by the window. There's a small house near a field in Iloilo. where people say you should never greet anyone you see at the window, especially if they don't move. The house used to belong to Aling Rosa. She lived there for over 60 years, quiet, polite, always lighting candles at dusk, always looking out the window near the kitchen. She died in that very spot, sitting by the window, holding her candle, the neighbors said. She never left. When a new family moved in, they cleaned the place, repainted the walls, cleared out old furniture, but they left the chair by the window on the first night. The mother saw someone sitting there from the corner of her eye. When she turned, no one was there on the second night. The candles she packed away were sitting on the windowsill, lit, no wind, no match, no smoke. She asked her children, but they hadn't touched anything. On the third night, her youngest son cried and said an old lady told him to keep quiet because people are praying. But there was no one in the room. They started hearing slow dragging footsteps after sunset, always toward the window, always stopping just short of the curtain. The rocking chair began to creak softly once at exactly 6 p.m., again at midnight. They tried to leave, but the gate wouldn't open. And when they called for help, no signal, no sound, only the soft flicker of a candle in the corner of the house. One morning, they found footprints on the floor, ash gray, leading from the bedroom to the window. And then nothing, just the rocking chair swaying on its own. Now no one lives there. But during dusk, drivers passing by say they see a woman in white hair staring out, holding something small, glowing orange. And if you make eye contact, she nods once as if she remembers you, and then she waits. The man in the garden in a quiet barangay in Laguna. There's a house at the edge of a rice field with a small garden out back, and a wooden bench under the mango tree. People say not to walk too close after sundown, because there's someone still sitting there even though he's been gone for years. Mang Iskaho lived there alone. He was known for planting herbs, watering every morning, and sitting by the tree. Until dark, he died in his sleep, quietly, gently, still smelling of soil and leaves. After his burial, the plants began to grow faster, too fast. The vines climbed the windows, the roots cracked the pavement, even the weeds moved in patterns like they were reaching for something. When his nephew moved in, he cleaned the garden, cut the grass, burned the old dried branches. That same night, he dreamed of Mang Isko standing by the tree, saying nothing, just staring with hands full of soil. The nephew brushed it off until he noticed footprints in the mud leading to the bench, even when it hadn't rained each morning. He found the tools outside, freshly used. Though no one touched them, the bench was always warm. The dog refused to go near it. One night he looked outside and saw the figure of an old man kneeling over a patch of earth, moving slowly like he was planting something. The next day, small white flowers bloomed exactly where the figure had been. He dug them out and tossed them, but they grew back before morning. And that night, the back door opened on its own. The smell of soil filled the house. The plants inside the kitchen moved slightly like they were breathing. Now the garden is untouched. The tools stay where they are, and no one sits on the bench. But every sunset there's a shape under the mango tree, a figure rocking gently forward and back, as if tending to something no one can see. Some say He's not angry, he's just doing what he always did, waiting for someone to help finish what he started. The visitor in the rocking chair. There's an old house in Cavite, passed down through 3 generations, wood-worn smooth by time, walls filled with rosaries and picture frames. In the living room sits a rocking chair made of Nara, beside a window that faces the road. It used to belong to Lola Mele. She would sit there every afternoon watching children play, waving to neighbors, humming old condiments with her eyes closed. When she passed, they kept the chair where it was, unmoved, untouched, as a way of remembering her. But weeks after the funeral, the chair began to move only at dusk, only when the house was quiet, just a slow creak back and forth like someone gently swaying. At first they thought it was the wind, until they noticed the window was always closed, and the breeze never reached that corner. One night the granddaughter noticed a smell she hadn't sensed in weeks: sampagita, and old perfume, the kind her Lola always wore. She looked toward the chair and saw the figure sitting upright, back straight, hands resting calmly on the arms. The room cold. The figure didn't turn, but its reflection was clear in the glass. It was smiling, not cruel, not sad, just the way Lola used to smile when she heard someone coming home. They blinked, and the chair was empty. But the scent stayed, and the door to the kitchen creaked as if someone had just walked through. Now the family leaves food on the altar. Every Friday they light candles at 5 exactly. And no one ever sits in the chair. Even visitors instinctively avoid it, like they know it isn't theirs to use. Sometimes, if you're near the window at the right time of day, you'll see the chair rocking slightly with no wind, and a shadow resting in it that fades when you look too long. Lola Mele isn't angry. She's just waiting the way she always did, watching the house, remembering everyone who left, and quietly hoping someone will sit beside her again. He always lit the lamp in a small town near Bicol. There's an old bahay na bato that was known for glowing even during brownouts. People said the house never lost light because of the man who lived there, Mang Damien. He was the caretaker for decades, kept the place clean, lit oil lamps every sundown, and never left a single one unlit. They say he believed light kept spirits away. But when he passed, the lamps stayed dark. The house was left empty until a young couple moved and they brought electric bulbs. Cleaned out the soot, threw away the oil canisters. The first night the lights flickered, they blamed the wiring. The second night, the lights turned off at exactly 6 p.m. every room. Then the hallway lamps they had removed were back on the walls, unlit. But present, the couple checked the attic, found a line of old lamps lined up side by side, as if waiting for someone to fill them. Then they heard footsteps, slow, steady walking from one end of the house to the other, followed by a faint clicking sound like a matchstick. When they checked, no one was there. But in the hallway one of the lamps was lit, just one, and the flame danced without wind. The next night 2 lamps were burning. By the end of the week, all 7 hallway lamps were lit. By 6 p.m., without anyone touching them, the couple left after finding a note written in faint pencil near the altar: never let the night win. Now the house remains empty again. But if you pass by after sunset, you'll see a soft orange glow in every wind, and if you listen closely, you might Hear the quiet scratch of a match, and a voice whispering gently just one more before dark. She was still sewing in a quiet barangay in Quezon. There's an abandoned tailoring shop beside a bakery, small, dusty, with curtains that haven't moved in years. It used to be run by Lola Berta, known for sewing barong and school uniforms. Her hands were slow, but perfect every stitch, exact every hem. Even she worked until the day she died right there at her machine, still holding a needle, still humming to herself after her death. The shop was closed. No one claimed her things, not the thread, not the scissors. Not even the cloth that was still folded on the table. But at night passers-by say the shop window lights up faint yellow like a candle, flickering inside. Some swear they see a figure hunched over the table sewing even though the door is locked, and the power's been cut for years. A delivery boy once peeked through the window, saw the old sewing machine moving the pedal, pressing on its own, the needle rising and falling into fabric that wasn't there. The next morning, the boy found a hand-sewn patch inside his bag, his name stitched in thread. He never noticed when or how it was placed later. A new owner tried to turn the shop into a cafe. They renovated, cleaned, painted over the walls. But on the first night, they heard the soft metal clink of scissors from the storage room. The second night, they found sewing needles arranged neatly on the counter. The third night, they opened the lights and found the mannequin dressed in an old barat saya that no one had placed there. Then came the humming, low, calm, familiar from an old Kundiman song, the kind Lola Berta always sang. The cafe closed in less than a week now. The shop sits untouched again, curtains still drawn, a single bulb still hanging inside. And every now and then people walking by hear the gentle rhythm of thread pulling through fabric, like someone still working on something she never finished. The man who knocked every Sunday in a remote village in Ilocos. There's a row of old wooden houses, most of them empty. One of them never opens its front door. They say every Sunday morning someone knocks 3 times, then walks away. It started after Mang Eladio passed away. He was a familiar face around town. Always wore a hat, always carried a newspaper, and always visited the same house. Every Sunday he would knock 3 times, wait a moment, then leave a pack of pandazzle on the step and walk back home slowly, always humming the same tune. The woman who lived there was his sister. They didn't talk much anymore. No one knew why. When she died 2 months later, people thought that was the end of it. But the knocking never stopped. Every Sunday before sunrise, people heard 3 slow knocks on the same wooden door. No footsteps, just the sound of a hand gently tapping. Then silence. One neighbor stayed up to check, watched from her window at 4:30 in the morning. She saw an old man in a faded shirt and a straw hat, standing still by the door, his hand raised, but not moving. Then, after a few seconds, the door creaked slightly, and the man walked away, disappearing into the mist before the street lamp flickered. No one lives in that house now, but the door always looks recently touched, and sometimes a pack of fresh pandazzle appears on the step, warm and soft, without a single footprint nearby. Locals say if you hear the knocks, don't open the door, just wait, let him finish what he came for, because he was never angry, just never finished, and some habits follow you even after death. She waited for the bell in an old coastal town in Samar. There's a school with a forgotten bell tower rusted silent. The rope snapped, the stairs sealed off, it hasn't rung in decades. But every Friday at exactly 3 p.m. people hear one soft bell ring, just one echoing across the empty courtyard. They say it started after the death of Maestra Consuelo. She was the school's oldest teacher, strict, quiet, always wore the same brown dress, and black shoes, always rang the bell herself at the end of every Friday. Class, she died in that tower one afternoon, collapsed beside the bell, clutching her class record. No one went up to get her body. The stairs were unstable. They had to bring her down through the window after her funeral. The bell stopped ringing until a year later, when the sound returned. Only once a week, only one ring. Students began reporting strange things, papers turning on their own chalk, moving words written on the blackboard that no one wrote, names from class lists, old students, now adults who once. I forgot to say goodbye. A janitor cleaning late saw a figure standing by the door of room 3, holding a book, her back straight, her face hidden in shadow. When he called out, she vanished. Only the faint scent of sampaguita remained. Another teacher said she heard footsteps behind her, slow, firm, then the feeling of a hand on her shoulder, cold but careful. Now no one stays in room 3 after 3 p.m. on Fridays. No one dares to speak during the bell because they say Maestra still takes attendance, and if she calls your name, you must answer, or shall come, looking not in anger, but in duty, because she was a teacher until her last breath, and her class is never truly dismissed. The radio still plays in a quiet barangay in Rizal. There's an old sari-sari store closed for years, shelves, empty windows boarded up. But every Sunday at 6 in the morning, people walking past say they hear music coming from inside, old Kundaman songs, playing from a radio that should no longer work. They say it's Mang Celso. He owned the store for 40 years. Every morning he opened it exactly at 6, played his radio while sweeping the front, played it while sipping coffee and listening to DZRA. He died alone inside the store, heart failure. They said the radio was still on when they found him. No one took the radio. It sat there covered in dust, no electricity, no batteries, still playing soft static with hints of music. Beneath, one night, a tricycle driver parked nearby heard laughter inside the store. When he checked, no one was there, just the faint sound of slippers moving across the floor, and the creak of a chair, as if someone had just sat down. Another time, a child passing by peeked through a gap wood and saw a figure behind the counter, hunched over, motionless, wearing a white sando and reading glasses. She waved, but the figure didn't move, only the radio turned louder, as if acknowledging her presence. Locals now cross the street when walking by. Some still hear Mang Celso talking softly to no one, like he's listing orders, soft voice, steady, gentle, as if he never left, just kept waiting for someone to buy bread or ask for change. And every Sunday at 6, the music plays again, same song, same time. A store that never opens but never truly closed. She served tea at sunset at the edge of a hill in Tagaytay. There's a house with a small garden. and a bamboo table that faces the west. People say don't go near it during golden hour, because that's when she returns. Alling Marta lived there for most of her life. She was known for her quiet smile and for serving tea to guests. Even if no one remembered arriving, she always said sunset was the best time to talk to someone. When she died, the house was locked, the table left untouched, the cups still where she placed them. Weeks passed, and hikers started noticing things: fresh tea left steaming on the bamboo tray, a chair pulled out like someone had just stood up. Sometimes the scent of salabat floated through the trees, even when there was no one inside. One couple walking near the trail saw a woman in a white shawl arranging cups on the table. She looked up, smiled gently, and waved. They turned to greet her, but she was gone. Only the steam remained. A caretaker once tried to move the cups, but they returned the next morning exactly where they were facing. The sunset. People who stay too long near the house say they feel calm at first, then heavy, like someone is staring softly, asking them to sit and stay a while. One man stayed after dark and heard a whisper behind him, "You look tired, have a seat." He ran without turning back. Now no one touches the house. But every evening, just before the sky turns orange, you can see the shadow of a woman moving around the table, laying out cups with slow, careful hands, and the breeze carries her voice asking the same thing she always did: sugar or honey.
If you enjoyed this terrifying story, let us know in the comments below. Hit that like button to help us bring more cursed tales and dark legends to life. Don't forget to share this video with your friends, but warn them first. And if you dare, subscribe to this channel, because here in Pinoy Phobia, the horror never ends. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next cursed story, spine-chilling folklore, or true paranormal encounter from the shadows of the Philippines. Remember, some stories are meant to be heard, but others are meant to be warnings. Thank you for watching, and remember, whatever happens, don't look back.